think it's really important that we remember that architecture isn't about one building, but it's a collective. We really need to focus on how it creates a community and how it impacts the people that live there and are creating their own stories within the spaces as well. We are the backdrop to everybody's stories. We aren't focused on potentially being iconic or grandiose. It's more focused on how we can um, fold in experiences within the life of somebody who might feel as if they're just a regular person walking down the street. I've always really enjoyed the environment. I always thought I was an outdoorsy person. And, when I was growing up, I saw how buildings were being created. I grew up in Miami. So seeing the beaches and the Everglades were super important to me. But I wanted to make sure that we were able to keep those as well and really hyper focus on while we are creating new projects and new buildings across the state and internationally, we were still able to create protected areas, homage to the culture and the cities that we were working in. So architecture needs to be influenced by the location that we're building in, but also focused on the people that are going to be using the spaces. I am a woman designer in a male predominant world, but I also am very young within the profession. And making sure that my voice is heard through that process is really hard, but important to keep pushing towards. Because while this is an apprenticeship industry where we learn a lot from more seasoned and experienced architects who guide the younger profession, we also need to embrace the change that we're seeing as a younger generation and making sure that we have a say in design and community impact when it comes to our work. And I think I want to fold that into the actual design work. We come in with a lot of new ideas that some people might already say, been there, done that, already tried, make sure just go with what we've been doing for a really long time, and trying to break those boundaries is really important to really try to push forward within the community, both sustainability wise, but also just making sure we have great design across our cities. It is important to learn from the experiences from the past architects, and I have mentors, but there's a symbiotic relationship where we can be sharing information and creating the most unique perspective by combining both of the young perspective and the older perspective, and ensuring that together we can all make this even a better industry and community. Because getting just one point of view makes it rather one straight way, whereas we all know that architecture can flourish into many different paths. And that's not only in the professional sense, but the design and project sense. And I think it's important that not just looking at it from one point of view can really create so many beautiful products that we just want to make sure that we have those opportunities to share, and learning from past or current professionals, and then the younger, even students, growing from what they know, I think is really important. So just making sure that we're just listening, and you can always learn something new and always be a sponge to growth within our space. Sustainability, resilience, and well-being are the trifecta of making a perfect building. And using all three of those for sustainability and resilience, working together creates a high-performance building. And that is, I'll say, the best of both worlds, right? Protecting people through resilience and well-being, and protecting the environment through sustainability. And having all of that working together is so important for the future generations. I always grew up as a Girl Scout where we always were told to leave the earth a better place than we found it. And architecture is one of those professions that we have the opportunity to make that change and make it a better place. And I think that's always important that we try to ensure that all of our projects create that or have that mentality that we can, every little project can push our degree a little bit further to really emphasize that together as a community and as a city, we can really make larger efforts. And then, we spend 90% of our time in a building, and just making sure that the wellness of those space with indoor air quality and lighting and all of those little elements that some people might not even understand. But once you start talking to them, they realize, oh, this is why I don't feel good when I go into the office, or why I love going to this place. It's just because I can feel like I can breathe or I can see. And I think that's always important to remember that, while we are creating a building, we're creating spaces for everybody to live and play and grow. We might, as architects, love to look at them and say, this is amazing. What about that detail? How cool. But for the average user, they might not look at the ceiling and say, oh, I love this soffit detail. They're going to say, this is beautiful. It reminds me of my childhood, or it reminds me of that time I had this great experience with, maybe a grandparent that passed away, and it reminds people of the positive experience they're having within their life. And so you always want to create those elements to allow for people to have imagination within your building and really focus on the experiences. 2019, a client came up to us and asked if their project was going to go underwater in 5 to 10 years. And to be honest, in that location, we had no idea. And that pretty much started this whole thought of, well, we need to start really focusing on resilient projects, especially in what we started in the Southeast. So really focusing on flooding and hurricanes and sea level rise, and just ensuring that when we're designing a project, it's going to be the safest location for somebody to build and then live or work. This was, I believe, a medical hospital. So this was really key to ensuring that this would work during hurricanes. So in 2019, we created a group within our within HKS, and we just started researching and starting to focus and asking people around, how often do you talk about this? When are you working through certain codes, and how do you keep elevating beyond code and making sure that our projects are going to be safe for the users, and really ensuring that we can protect the people who work there. And through a lot of this research, we recognized that not only within our firm but outside, that a lot of people didn't know how to integrate resilient design within the traditional project schedule. So one of the things that my coworker Sammy Shams and I worked through, and some others along the way, was implementing a set of steps that allowed architects and planners and consultants to really work together to asking the right questions, knowing how to add certain eco charrettes and workshops and visioning sessions, to all the way to understanding the different types of hazards and risks that a project location would have, to then implementation. We didn't really focus on what types of implementation you could do, but how to really incorporate that into the schedule and the design process within that. And we even went into, after CA, after you've already handed the keys over, to making sure that you still reached out to your client and those users to ensure that when they are after a storm or anything like that, you reached out to them, and not only to check if they're okay, but to really see if those concepts worked, and to learn and take those lessons and move it into the next project. Because there's a lot of times where we forget to look back at the work we've done And going back and learning from those experiences, we can always make the next project even better. For our resilience design toolkit, we're using it in our state as well as across the country. We actually co-published it with AIA National May of 2023. And what that allowed us to do was share the information. We didn't want to just keep it within our firm, and we wanted to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to increase their design performance within their projects. So helping change the perspective of how to include resilience within design. And we've started seeing this being implemented into other research when it comes to resilience in Hawaii. We saw a publication from another design firm referencing the Resilience Design Toolkit. So it's really exciting that some of these design toolkits, such as ours, there's a lot of others as well. So focusing on all of that has really been able to create a spring point for so much more when it comes to resilient design and resilient strategies within the built environment.